In the cold months after Smaug's fall and the Battle of the Five Armies, the lands of Dale and Erebor slowly healed. New homes rose from the ash and ruin, and laughter returned to the long shadows of the lonely mountain. Yet, in the farthest reaches of the realm, where the mountain's light could not reach, there still lingered echoes of the past. This is the story of Halvar Haraldsson, a humble woodsman of Dale, who lived on the edge of the wild in a small lodge near the evergreen Greybow Woods. He was not a warrior nor a bard, yet his tale was sung by hearth fires long after he was gone. The winter that year was crueler than any Halvar had known. The snows came early, blanketing the forests in silence. The air grew thick with frost, and the stars above seemed dim and distant, like pale lanterns hidden behind veils of ice. Halvar's lodge sat at the edge of a frozen stream, with little more than a stone hearth and a sturdy roof of pine to shield him from the bitter cold. But Halvar did not fear the winter. His heart was quiet and steadfast. He gathered wood in the early dawn, hunted stag with his great-uncle's bow, and repaired the cracks in his roof as the winds howled like wolves. When the snows buried the pass, he cleared them with steady hands. Yet, even the calmest of men can feel when something stirs in the deep places of the world. It began one evening as Halvar prepared his evening meal. A distant sound, low and mournful, carried through the pines. It was not the call of a wolf, nor the sigh of wind. It was something far older, like a horn blast from a forgotten age. Halvar paused, his spoon still in hand, and stepped to the door. The sound faded into the stillness of the trees. The woods beyond his cabin were dark, yet his keen eyes caught something strange. A flicker of blue light far among the boughs. It hovered like a dim star, cold and faint. Though his mind whispered caution, Halvar was not one to ignore the strange workings of the world. He wrapped himself in a thick fur cloak, took his lantern and his bow, and ventured into the snow. The woods were solemn as he passed, and his feet crunched softly beneath the weight of the drifts. The further he walked, the more the world seemed to narrow. The trees pressed closer, their branches arching above like the ribs of a great hall. Then he saw it again. The blue light flickered ahead, resting near the base of an ancient pine. But as Halvar approached, it vanished, and in its place lay something that made his breath catch. A cairn, a low stone mound, half buried by snow, with a blackened helm resting atop it. The helm was old, crumbling with rust, but unmistakably dwarven in make. Halvar knelt and brushed the snow away from the stones. Though he was but a man of Dale, he knew the stories well. Many dwarves had perished in these woods during the long winter of King Thrain, pursued by fell creatures after the fall of Khazad-dûm. As he uncovered more of the cairn, he heard a voice, not loud, but soft as the turning of leaves. Cold we fell, and cold we remain. Halvar's heart chilled, but he stood his ground. His lantern's glow revealed a narrow gap in the cairn, just enough to see what lay beneath. The glint of mail, a hilt wrapped in ancient leather, and a pale hand resting upon it. The whispering voice grew clearer now, though the wind was still. It spoke not with malice, but with sorrow. Who will remember the nameless dead beneath these hills? Who will light the fire to warm the forgotten? Halvar, though no lord or bard, knelt and spoke with a voice steady as the earth itself. You are not forgotten. The halls of Erebor ring with your songs, though none know your names. I will honor you, and no one should be left alone beneath the ice. The blue light flared briefly, like a flickering ember, but then softened. The spirit's presence lingered, as if in thought, but its sorrow lessened. One flame for the lost. That is enough. Halvar reached into his pouch and took out his last fire starter, a treasured flint given to him by his late father. He struck it until a bright flame danced in his hand. Gently, he lit the lantern and placed it atop the cairn. As the flame grew steady, the snow around the stones seemed to soften. The frost upon the helm melted, revealing the faint mark of Durin's kin, a star and hammer. The wind quieted, and the blue light faded like morning mist. Halvar stood for a long time in silence, watching the flame burn. He did not feel cold. When Halvar returned to his lodge, the night sky was clear and filled with stars. He rekindled his hearth and warmed himself beside it. The weight of the strange encounter pressed against his heart, but it was not fear, it was peace. He had walked into the shadows and returned not with terror, but with a story worth keeping. The next morning, as the sun rose pale but bright, Halvar made his way into the town of Dale with a solemn purpose. He told the story of the forgotten Cairn and the whispering spirits of the woods. The folk of Dale, hardened by years of war and hardship, listened quietly, and when he was done, the elders agreed that the Cairn should be honored. The next spring, the folk of Dale and Erebor alike ventured to the Greybow Woods with axes and torches. They raised a stone pillar by the cairn, etched with runes of remembrance, and lit a fire that burned bright for all to see. And though the spirit was never seen again, the woods remained calm. No strange lights or morning winds came again to trouble those who wandered there. Halvar lived many more winters in his quiet lodge. When he passed in the warmth of his home many years later, it was said that a blue light was seen dancing briefly above his hearth, soft as a memory before fading into peace. And thus the people of Dale remembered him not just as a woodsman, but as a keeper of the winter hearth, a man who warmed the forgotten with fire and kept the cold at bay.